Alright, let's start our next chapter. 19. Human influences on ecosystems. Here our key learning objectives will be food production effects, habitat destructions, pollution and environmental consequences, and conservation strategies. Farming practices and environmental impact. Let's talk about it. Intensive farming. Okay, what are the advantages of intensive farming? Increased food production, more efficient land usage, potential habitat preservation. What are the potential disadvantages of intensive farming? So it includes animal welfare issues, crowded living conditions, disease transmission risk. Environmental consequences: water resource depletion, pollution from waste, high energy consumption. What are the farming techniques that we have? Technique number 1, fertilizers using. Purpose is nutrient enhancement, environmental impact, potential soil water contamination. Second technique is using herbicides. Purpose is weed control and environmental impact can be ecosystem disruption. Third technique is insecticides. Here purpose is pest management. Environmental impact is biodiversity reduction. Next we have selective breeding. Improve crop, livestock production, genetic diversity limitations. Okay, now let's talk about habitat destruction mechanism. Primary causes of habitat destruction include land conversion, crop cultivation, livestock farming, urban development. This all comes under land conversion. Second reason is resource extraction, which include mining and fossil fuel exploration. And the third reason is like pollution, introducing pollution into the mechanism, into the environment. Now let's talk about ecosystem vulnerability in environment. Okay, now let's talk about ecosystem vulnerability. Species specific habitat adaptations, interconnected food web dependencies. Example, coral reef ecosystem disruption. Coral removal impacts entire marine ecosystem. Photosynthetic algae as foundational food chain element. Now, this is an example of ecosystem vulnerability. Now let's talk about conservation considerations. Critical reflecting points: balancing human needs with environmental preservations, sustainable development strategies that we have to think for, species protection importance that we need to give. Alright, and form strategies accordingly. Alright, next is potential mitigation strategies. Habitat restoration, learn at least 2 to 3 out of these, very important for exam perspective. Okay, so potential mitigation strategies includes habitat restoration, controlled breeding programs, sustainable agricultural practices, pollution reduction initiatives. Now let's talk about environmental science, deforestation and greenhouse gases. Deforestation, let's talk about causes and consequences. Impact on soil and landscape. Soil erosion mechanism. Trees removed exposing soil to environmental forces. Okay, this is soil erosion mechanism. What's happening? Trees are removed, exposing the soil to environmental forces. Next, rain washes away unprotected topsoil. Land become vulnerable to erosion like this. Soil structure deteriorates rapidly. Now let's talk about habitat destruction. Biodiversity loss. What is it? It is the removal of forest eliminates critical animal habitats. This is biodiversity loss. Small forest islands insufficient for species survival. So again, leading to biodiversity loss. Threatens multiple species with potential extinction. Okay, let's talk about water cycle disruption. Here we will talk about transpiration changes. So trees normally absorb and redistribute rainwater, but deforestation reduces atmospheric moisture, and then it leads to decreased uh, rainfall, which further add the problem in the surrounding region, and then it complicates agricultural sustainability. Let's talk about socio-economic factors. Here we can talk about poverty and forest preservation. Developing countries often clear forest for survival, for population growth, for making their homes, for example. Local population need alternative income sources. So they remove the forest, they make industries to increase their incomes, to form more jobs, employability, such as international conservation groups provide support regarding this matter, and sustainable forest management strategies are emerging now because we know the consequences of removing trees, and deforestation consequences are extremely negative for our future generation. Okay, now let's talk about greenhouse gases and climate impact. Greenhouse effect basics. So atmospheric warming mechanism. So greenhouse is actually an atmospheric warming mechanism. How it happens? Gases traps infrared radiations. Carbon dioxide and methane primary contributors of this greenhouse gases. Essential for maintaining Earth's temperature. So we need to maintain an appropriate Earth temperature. Otherwise, we will see the global warming like we are seeing these days. Let's talk about carbon dioxide sources. Human induced increases. Industrial fossil fuel combustion increases the carbon dioxide, increases the pollution, impacts more this environment, increases the global warming ultimately. Vehicle emissions. Deforestation reduces carbon dioxide absorption. Tree decomposition releases additional carbon. Methane production. Agriculture and waste sources. Paddy field bacteria, livestock digestive processes, landfill decomposition, potential mitigation through gas collection. Some climate change indicators are atmospheric CO2 trends, CO2 carbon dioxide trends. Significant concentration has increased since 1750, measured in parts per million ppm, correlates with global temperature rise. So that's the factor of increasing global temperature due to increase in these carbon dioxide and other gases. Mitigation strategies. What could be the mitigation strategies? We have some conservation approaches which include sustainable forest management, alternative income generation, methane capturing technologies, reducing fossil fuel consumption. Now, key visualization important metrics for us is greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide and methane. Their primary sources are fossil fuels and deforestation, and their impact is very high. For methane, it also primary source includes agriculture and waste, and the impact level is moderate. Now let's talk about environmental science, climate change and pollution. Now we see sea level rise. Key observation: NASA satellite data tells us that ice caps in Arctic and Antarctic losing mass since 2009. Antarctic losing approximately 127 gigatons of ice per year. Arctic is losing ice even faster. Causes of this sea level rises is these melting of ice, and then melting of ice is linked with the global warming, increase in temperature. Two primary mechanism: melting ice caps, thermal expansion, liquid volume increases with temperature. Global impact can be sea level changes, 7.5 centimeter rise between 1993 to 2017. Vulnerable regions: Marshall Island, Kiribati, Tuvalu, Maldives. Major cities at risk by 2060: New York, Singapore, and Mumbai. Let's talk about extreme weather events. Climate change effects: atmospheric energy increase, more complex wind patterns, development of new weather system. Observable trends include hurricanes, tropical cyclones, increasing frequency, increasing intensity. Drought, more frequent, longer duration. Let's talk about rainfall patterns: unexpected timing, increased severity, potential severe flooding. Potential consequences are more forest fires, wildlife disruptions, unpredictable environmental changes. These all will be, the reasons of extreme weather events that can happen, that had happened already, now started. We can see the impacts of all these, but then we can expect more severity in the coming years. Alright, let's talk about reducing greenhouse gas emission strategies. Reduce fossil fuel consumption, increase renewable energy sources, solar power, wind energy. Instead of using fossil fuel, we can use solar power, wind energy, the ones which does not results in creating or forming of carbon dioxide and such gases. International cooperation and agreements are required. Eutrophication. Now, what is it? Definition: process of nutrient overload in aquatic environment. What are the causes of this? Fertilizers runoff, nitrates, phosphates, untreated sewage, agriculture waste. These are all the causes of this nutrient overload in aquatic environment. Now, environmental impact: reduce oxygen levels, algal bloom, death of aquatic organisms. What mitigation strategies that we have? Proper sewage treatment, controlled fertilizers application, organic fertilizer usage. Non-biodegradable plastics characteristics include manufactured from fossil fuels, lightweight, versatile in shape and color. Okay, so we can use non-biodegradable plastic. Then we have environmental challenge: non-biodegradable, cannot be broken down by decomposer. So we don't need such substances which cannot be decomposed. Okay, and then it accumulates in environment. Then we have potential solution: reduce plastic usage. Okay, we have to use the plastic which is bio, or a material, if it's not plastic, which is biodegradable, so that it can decompose. Okay, potential solution: reduce plastic usage, develop biodegradable alternatives, improve recycling patterns. Okay, now we have conservation and endangered species. Okay, in this topic we talk about forest conservation and education. Key strategies includes education as conservation tools. Teach local communities about forest preservation. Encourage them replanting of trees after cutting. Promote renewable energy alternatives, example solar energy. Now let's talk about protection methods. Legal protection of forest areas, restricting trees cutting and hunting, raising awareness about ecosystem importance. Fish stock conservation. Let's talk about fish stock conservation. Global fishing challenges. What are these? Increasing fishing pressure. World fish catch has dramatically increased since 1950. So there is a risk of depleting fish population. Difficulty in international regulation. So we need to form some regulation which can form strategies for handling this fishing pressure. Conservation techniques that we have is: number one, fishing quotas. limit catch quantities for different species, challenges accidental catch of non-targeted species. Second is seasonal restrictions, closed fishing seasons during breeding periods, protected marine areas as fish refuge, fishing gear regulations, restriction on net mesh size, bottom trawling, and dredging techniques. Monitoring strategies could be electronic position sensors, sea and land inspections. Expensive, but necessarily we have to enforce them. Now let's talk about endangered species. Now extinction definition. Extinct. No living individuals remain of that particular population. Endangered population, critically low, high extinction risk. Now causes of species extinction. Important. Learn some of them. Climate change, habitat destruction, human hunting, pollution, introduction of invasive species. These are all the causes of extinction of species. Conservation approaches can be habitat protection, monitoring natural environment, removing invasive species. Second, we can use captive breeding programs, zoos as conservation centers, genetic diversity maintenance, assisted reproduction techniques. Third is seed banking, storing seeds for future restoration, preserving plant genetic diversity. Next we have reproduction conservation techniques. Here we can use assisted reproduction methods such as artificial insemination, precise timing, hormone monitoring, and sperm insertion. In vitro fertilization (IVF), we can use egg collection, fertilization in laboratory, and embryo implantation. Now let's talk about conservation and environmental science. Conservation projects, challenges and perspective. Complex scenarios involving multiple stakeholders with conflicting interests. Key challenges include balancing environmental protection with human needs. Now let's talk about typical conservation scenario, some examples. Number first is fuel tax proposal. Objective: reduce carbon dioxide emission. What are the challenges? Increased travel cost, potential economic impact, resistance from affected population. Second is ocean fishing restrictions. Proposed actions: ban fishing in specific ocean areas, stakeholders' concerns, fishermen's economic survival, impact on coastal town economies, fish stock recovery strategies. Next conservation strategy is predator management on islands. Conservation goal is protect native species. Ethical dilemmas include introduced species elimination, public emotional attachment, ecological preservation. Now let's talk about greenhouse effect and environmental factors. So key greenhouse gases, as we have discussed earlier also: methane, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. What are their contributions to greenhouse effect? So methane, significant contributor. Carbon dioxide, primary greenhouse gas, and carbon monoxide has a minor impact. Alright, let's talk about biodiversity and species conservation. Here, endangered species characteristics we will look into. Now, these species, endangered species characteristics, includes dramatically reduced in their population numbers, high risk of extinctions they are on to, and they have limited productive capabilities. Example: hawksbill turtle, 90% population declined in 100 years. Slow reproductive cycles, female breeds at 30 years. Vulnerable to environmental threats. Threats to species survival: climate change, habitat loss, hunting, introduction of non-native species, and pollution. Now let's talk about conservation strategies, breeding and preservation techniques. Captive breeding programs include artificial insemination, genetic diversity maintenance, population recovery efforts. Monitoring and research methods include tracking chemical indicators, genetic analysis, pollution surveys. Deforestation impacts: environmental consequences due to deforestation can be reduced biodiversity, increased carbon dioxide levels. Learn few of these. Okay, soil erosion, habitat destruction, disrupted food webs. What are the tropical rainforest significance? High species diversity, oxygen production, climate regulation, and carbon dioxide absorption. Some agricultural practices and environmental impact. Let's talk about selective breeding. Okay, definition is strategic selection of plants and animals to develop improved varieties. Okay, key achievement here we have increased crop yield, example wheat with more grain per plant. Developed crops resistant to poor soil conditions, diseases, enhanced livestock productivity, cattle producing more meat and milk, hens lays more eggs. Okay, now let's talk about monocultures. Okay, advantages of monocultures: farming efficiency. Okay, easier machinery cultivation, uniform crop growth, simplified pest herbicide treatment, consistent harvest quality. Okay, so learn here in monoculture. Then disadvantages: biodiversity reduction, limited species diversity, fewer supporting ecosystems. Next we have pest vulnerability, concentrated food sources, rapid pest pollution growth, increased disease transmission. Now let's talk about pest management strategies. Number 1 is insecticide spraying, number 2 mixed cropping, and then crop rotation. Alright, now let's talk about agriculture technologies. Crop production enhancement, agriculture machinery, use of chemical fertilizers, insecticides, herbicides, and selective breeding techniques. These are all the crop production enhancement. We can use all these 5 techniques. Next we have environmental impact. Habitat destruction causes food crop expansion, livestock production, and resource extraction, and pollution. Ecosystem consequences include reduced biodiversity, species extinction, disrupted food webs, soil degradation. Conservation approaches. Conservation strategies include species protection like monitoring protected areas, captive breeding programs, seed banks, resource management, quotas, education, and replanting initiatives. Now let's talk about biodiversity preservation reasons. Why we want to preserve it? To maintain genetic diversity, to preserve nutrient cycling, to protect resource sources. Energy transfers in ecosystems, trophic level efficiency includes energy transfer between level is inefficient. Food chains typically limited to 5 levels. Plant-based diets more energy efficient. Pollution and environmental challenges. Aquatic ecosystem threats. Untreated sewage, excess fertilizers, eutrophications, non-biodegradable plastics. These are all the challenges. Okay. Atmospheric challenges. Methane emission, carbon dioxide increase, enhanced greenhouse effect, and climate change. Now let's talk about livestock production. Production types: extensive livestock production, animal graze naturally, minimal environmental disruption. Intensive livestock production, controlled environments maximize productivity. Key takeaway tables: monocultures, impacts on low biodiversity, mitigation can be by using mixed cropping. Pest management, impact is crop vulnerability, it controls, and mitigation strategy is integrated approaches. Energy transfer, inefficient, so we need to transfer to plant-based diets. Habitat destructions, impact on ecosystem disruptions, so conservation programs are required as a mitigation strategy. With this we have finished this chapter, and see you in our next chapter.